Hi everyone, it's Martin again, and welcome to the second episode of Flying on a Shoestring. What I thought I would do tonight is give you some information on just all the different types of materials that I'm going to be using. Not only the study materials, but the actual tools that I'm going to be using in the cockpit and outside the cockpit, quite frankly. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of my desk here, and I've got some things laid out for you, and just to kind of show you and bring you up to speed. So let me flip the camera around. Here we go. As you can see from my desk, of course, I have to have a calendar with a Cirrus jet on it and a sectional chart, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So a little bit of a tour around the desk here to give you a little bit of a, there's a lot of stuff here, and let me take you kind of on a little bit of a tour. First, of course, is the good old aviation headset, because without one of these, I can't communicate, and we can't communicate, my instructor and I will not be able to communicate with air traffic control without a headset like this, or I could have a handheld unit, but it gets pretty noisy in the cockpit, so we really kind of use those for emergencies only, and I don't have one of those at this point. So right to the left of that is my pilot's logbook, and this is really where every single flight that I have, both in the air and on the ground, is recorded and signed off by my instructor. So when we talk about the actual flight lessons, we're going to use the private pilot syllabus. And it's kind of like, for those of you who have been in college or high school for that matter, when your teacher gives you a syllabus, you get to kind of know what's going to go on through the entire class. So that's what basically this does, and it explains every step of the way on all of my lessons. So that's going to be, that's a really good tool to have. Next to that is what we call the FAR AIM. And this is the Federal Aviation Regulations Airman's Information Manual. This literally, this giant aviation Bible, if you will, it has every aviation regulation and everything a pilot needs to know about following the rules that the Federal Aviation Administration lays out. So it's a really important thing. I do not have to have that all memorized, thank God. But what's interesting is that thing is so thick. There is my actual real Bible, and when you put them together, they're both pretty thick. So kind of going around the desk a little bit more, I'm going to take you over to what we call the FAQ, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. Really important stuff that the FAA wants us to know. And also the Airplane Flying Handbook. Great study materials. I have something online that I'm using as well called the King Schools. It's really a video series for my ground school, and it takes you through everything by video, which is really cool too. Right next to this is something I have no idea how to use yet, and it's called the E6B Flight Computer. And it basically tells you, oh my gosh, everything you need to know. And it flips over and it does stuff for the winds and navigation, and I can't wait to figure out how to use that sucker. And then we also have another kind of a plotting device, which I also don't know how to use yet, but I know my instructor will tell me about it. Right next to that is, this is really the checklist for the airplane I'm going to be flying, the Cessna 150 commuter. It's called a Cessna 150M for Mike. And you can see it's pretty extensive, and it goes both sides. So knowing the checklist is really important, and it keeps you safe. Now I want to kind of take you on a quick trip to this thing right here, and this is called a sectional chart. And I cut this part out. This is not the full chart. There are charts like this for every bit of airspace in our country. This happens to be Washington, D.C.'s airspace. So for those of my friends who are watching this who aren't in the D.C. area, this is quite unique airspace, actually, because it is really restricted, and you can get in big trouble by flying in areas you shouldn't be in. My home airport is right up here in Frederick, Maryland, and that's where I'm going to be flying out of. As you can see right above that, you can see a little thing that says P-40. That is Camp David, the presidential retreat. If you fly in there, they are going to scramble some F-16 fighter jets after you. And as we come down into Washington, this is D.C. right here. And that's National Airport and all of the monuments and whatnot. You have to have special permission to go in and fly around Washington. But you also have to have some special training. And I got this, the Certificate of Achievement for what's called the DC CIFRA, DC Special Flight Restriction Area. And that allows me to have the knowledge to be able to fly in and around DC within about 30 miles. Actually, if you're within about 60 miles, you kind of got to take the class. So I took that and made sure I was certified to do that, because a lot of my flying is going to be done around the DC area. So I'm really excited about all of this. When you look at this thing, it looks super complicated, doesn't it? It's got all kinds of lines and drawings and symbols, and it can be intimidating. But the more you study it and the more you really understand it, it really isn't Chinese anymore. I really am starting to understand what all the symbols mean. So that's pretty cool. So that's really just a quick tour around my desk and around some of the tools I'll be using. I don't want to forget about this one, and I'm going to go to my knee board. This is actually strapped on my knee, and it's got a little snap closure thingy there that I can put paper on. And this is just a way to keep organized. And I'll have paper here to copy down instructions from air traffic control and other things that just make it easier for me to reference. So I hope you found this little bit interesting, and I'm going to flip back now. I hope you found that interesting. There's a lot to this. It's really exciting. I am totally geeked up about it, and thank you for sharing this with me. And I'll be posting hopefully interesting things. Please note in the comments if you want to see something or you have questions. Have a great night and take care.